Good evening. Oh my god, it is so long since I have been on live. I said I'd take a little break for Christmas and now it's the end of January and I'm only back now. But you know, that's life. We've all been dealing with various things. Yeah. This is my first live in a long time. So do say hi if you're joining me live, and I'll be saving this down anyway. If you missed the beginning. Wanted to talk this evening about the statistics around birth and some of the fear that might generate with you. I have been putting out some stuff on my grid from the Maternity Indicator Report, which is a report that's put together every year. Gathers up all the data from the various maternity hospitals we have in Ireland and publishes the rates of all sorts of different things. And I've been putting some grid posts up on that, on C-section rates and episiotomy rates and induction rates, etc. And it's created a lot of talk and comments and DMs, and it has caused some fear in some pregnant women, which of course is not my aim, but it's totally understandable. You know, if you're a first time mom and you look at the statistics, it is quite scary to realise you know, how high your chance might be of having to have an induction or having to have a C-section, for example. And equally, if you've had one of those before, you know, to realise, hey, how you doing? You know, that the numbers are still very high, even on your second or third or whatever pregnancy or birth. You know, the numbers in Irish hospitals for a lot of interventions are really high. And yeah, totally understand why that would scare people. But what I wanted to come on today and say is, you know, you don't have to be one of those statistics. Yes, our rates are high, but there is a lot that you can do for yourself to help avoid, you know, any of the major interventions. So your forceps or your inductions or your C-sections, I'm kind of calling those the kind of big interventions, if you like. But there is a lot that you can do to at least give yourself the best chance. You know, I can't guarantee you're going to avoid them totally, but definitely give yourself the best chance. You know, if you talk about C-sections, for example, some are inevitable, especially in an emergency situation, but some women are always going to need a C-section. For whatever reason, whatever happens on the day or prior to the birth, they are going to need that, and I'm not talking to those women. But you know, we have a C-section rate of around 33%, so 1 in 3 women are having sections in this country, whereas the WHO is telling us it really should be down around 10%. So you know, 1 in 10 women, whereas we're at 3 in 10 women. So there's 2 women there out of every 10 that more than likely don't need a C-section. You know, according to the WHO. But yeah, they're having them in this country, and I'm speaking about Irish stats. You know, if you're watching this from many other developed countries, anyway, it's fairly similar. The rates are rising in all the countries. So yeah, I'm not trying to, you know, does anybody that's had to have a section or knows they're going to have a section. But what I'm trying to talk to is those 2 out of 10 women who maybe offered it but really don't need it. But how do you know that, and what can you do to help prevent having these interventions that you most likely don't need? And the good news is there's lots you can do. The first thing really is to get educated on all those interventions, or as I like to call them, choices, because they are choices. They may not be presented to you always as a choice, but every intervention is a choice for you. So really get educated on the benefits, the risks, and they're going to be slightly different for every person, depending on your own personal pregnancy experiences, whatever. But really get educated on understanding the benefits of and the risks, and also understanding that there is a cascade. That's really the first thing to know about interventions, is what may seem as quite small interventions can cascade, you know, until you get to having more and more, until you're into the realm of induction or forceps birth or possibly section or whatever. So even understanding that fact is, you know, you're already one up on a lot of people. So something simple like a vaginal exam, or what may seem simple like having a vaginal exam or having a CTG, which is the monitoring they do of your baby's heartbeat, has been shown to increase your risks of having other interventions. So getting educated, really understanding all your choices around interventions is key in trying to avoid them. Again, I'm not saying all interventions are bad. Some women really need them. They save lives every day. But we're overusing them. Hey Martina, how are you? We're definitely overusing them in this country. So it's, as I say, I'm talking to you who are trying to avoid being one of those statistics of women who are having interventions that really aren't necessary, because they do cause that's the thing, there's no such thing as an innocuous procedure. At the end of the day, they all have effects on you or your baby, physically or mentally, etc. So yeah, educated on all your choices, risks, benefits, etc. is the first thing. The second thing I would say is again, learning all about how to position yourself for birth, how to move for birth, how to stay mobile for birth. And it actually starts right back in pregnancy, or that's how I teach it anyway in my classes, because how you position yourself in pregnancy and in birth affects your baby's position. And if you can optimize that, if you can get your baby into the best position for birth, you're going to have a shorter labour, a labour that is less painful, a labour that needs less interventions at the end of the day. So positioning your baby, or this thing called biomechanics is what it's called, which is basically how your body affects your baby's position, affects your birth. Really, really key thing to learn to try and reduce your need for any kind of intervention. Because as you can imagine, if baby's not in an ideal position, labour is going to be slower, labour is going to be more painful. So you are going to end up more likely needing something like an epidural, needing possibly an assisted birth, so vacuum or forceps, or in the worst case scenarios, you know, baby's really getting struck or unhappy or whatever, needing a C-section. So yeah, positioning, biomechanics, really, really key thing to help avoid any of that. And then the last thing I suppose is, learning how to deal with fear. Again, I talked about this at the start of the thing. I can totally understand why any of these stats would make you fearful. It's, totally, I know, if I'm pregnant and thinking I have a 1 in 3 chance of needing an induction or whatever, I'm going to be afraid. So I'm totally understanding why you would be afraid, but it is important to try and deal with that. So things like hypnobirth and affirmations, mindfulness, any of that kind of stuff that can help release fears is really going to help you for your birth. Because if you're calm, if you're confident, if you're feeling in control for your birth, you're going to make good decisions, you're going to be able to mobilize, you're going to be able to use all your labour pain relief tools that you've got ready. So you're going to be in a much better position to, again, avoid those interventions as much as possible. So yeah, that's my 3 things, as I say, really with the aim of trying to, minimize, if you can, in these interventions, try and stop you being one of those statistics. So education about all your interventions, movement for birth, really learning how to mobilize and be upright, and labouring well for birth. Breathing for birth was the other one I forgot to mention, really key as well. And yeah, dealing with the fear, dealing with any kind of fear that arises, and that all comes down to practicing obviously while you're pregnant, so that you can feel that calm, collected, ready for anything feeling when it's time to birth. So hopefully that helped, and as always, if you have any questions, do feel free, send me a little DM. Thanks for joining me live, ladies.